Happy Thursday, and thank you so very much for joining the Faith-Based Advisory Board's Economic Development Committee as we are going to discuss the rental evictions that has taken place as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic that is going on in our state. We do ask that some very important information is going to be shared on today. We do ask that you share this with your social media following. We do believe that we have put together a group of informative individuals who do possess some of the answers that we need in such a time as this. So we do ask that you share this on your social media platforms, text this out to your audience and let them know that answers are here if you're facing eviction, or if you know someone who is facing eviction, or if you are a homeowner and you have a rental tenant in one of your properties. Answers are here to help you. We're going to get started in just about 30 seconds. And again, we'll give you time to share and welcome. Thank you for joining us on today. Hello, hello, hello. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Faith-Based Advisory Board's Economic Development Committee, very first town hall, as we address today rental evictions, answers for both tenants and land homeowners. It is our heart's desire that the information that you receive today is going to be both informative and impactful as we navigate through days that we've never lived through before. My name is Lady Nakia Wright. I happen to be the chair of the Faith-Based Advisory Board, and what an honor it is to serve in Prince George's County. We have a county executive who's placed us in a position to be an answer to the faith-based community, and we are serving with great joy, great honor, and proud to be Prince Georgians. I do have the honor of serving with my co-chair, Dr. Sharon Anderson, who will be the moderator today, and our overseer of the Faith-Based Advisory Board, Reverend Charles McNeil. Dr. Sharon Anderson, who is a professor at both Premise and Harvard University. She is the owner of a consulting firm, KCG Consulting, where they specialize in churches, nonprofits, and small businesses. She writes grants. She provides relief for COVID-19 funding. She has been an answer for such a time as this. It gives me great honor to serve with her, and it gives me great joy to introduce her in just a moment. But before we do that, let me share with you the vision of the Faith-Based Advisory Board. Our vision is to merge, to bridge both the faith-based community and the government entities together so that we can work here in Prince George's County to be a unified one. We've done so many phenomenal things. If you have not done so already, please be sure to like the Faith-Based Advisory Board page, our social media page on both Instagram and Facebook, where we share all that we're doing and all of the information that we're receiving. Our goal is to be a constant, ready answer for the pastors here in Prince George's County. We know that everyone comes to the pastors for answers. So it is our goal to make sure that they have the most accurate information that they need in order to share it with you. Today, as I stated, we're going to be discussing the rental evictions that's taking place here in Prince George's County. As many as you know, as a result of the pandemic, we have over 292,000 residents in our state who are facing eviction. Today, we're going to have the conversation. So without further ado, I'm going to present to some and introduce to others, Dr. Sharon Anderson. You have the floor.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, I should say, and welcome to our town hall on Landlord and Tenant. As Lady Wright indicated, we are facing some dire circumstances here in not just the county, not just the state of Maryland, but certainly in the United States as a whole. As we have struggled through as a nation COVID-19, there's so many different issues that have presented, we've been presented with. We've been presented with mental health issues. We've been presented with economic issues. We're now presented with housing issues. And one thing that the faith-based advisory, Lady Wright said, we've been trying to provide answers to you and for you so that you can navigate these uncertain times with the up-to-date information and the most up-to-date information so that you can be safe, so that you could be healthy, so that you could be whole, and so that you can make the proper decisions that you need to make in every area of your life. And what we've tried to do as the FBAB is to bridge that gap between what government resources are available, what private resources may be available, so that you and you make the best decisions during this unknown and uncertain time. So we're really grateful to be here today. And as we, as the FBAB has been navigating through this process, what we learned was that we really needed to break down into subcommittees in order to really begin to address some of these issues. So I think, as all of you know and you've seen, we broke out into a mental health subcommittee, and we've offered town halls regarding mental health resources that are available to you, and will be town hall today. But as we were speaking about what we feel were the needs of Prince George's County residents, we knew that there was this looming issue that everyone was facing and addressing, and that was whether or not you would be facing an eviction if you were a tenant, and how, as a landlord, you should respond if your tenant was not able to pay because of the pandemic. And so we stood up this economic subcommittee, economic development here, with all of them today. As we know, we are responding to this because we have a great overseer, Pastor Charles McNeil, and Lady Wright, our chairperson, has been just phenomenal in leading us in making sure that we are addressing all of the issues. But our economic development subcommittee today is really a great group of ladies and gentlemen who have a passion about making sure that these issues come to the forefront, and we have answers. We're going to discuss is not only what the state of the law is, but we are going to talk about the legislation that exists, and we're going to talk about the resources that are available for you if you're a landlord, and if you're a tenant, and if you're a homeowner. And so without further ado, I am going to introduce to you Pastor John Richardson. Pastor John Richardson is going to discuss with us today a little bit about the state of where we are legislatively. We know and we've heard that President Trump has issued a moratorium on evictions. But the question that many people have been asking is, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for me as a Prince George's County resident and a tenant? What does that mean for me as a Prince George's County homeowner? And what does that mean for me as a landlord in Prince George's County? So Pastor Richardson, please introduce yourself to the family on Facebook, and let's talk about what the current state of legislation is today.
Good afternoon to all my colleagues on the Faith-Based Advisory Board, Economic Development Committee, to all those who are watching on Facebook as we are streaming this town hall. Due to the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, Governor Larry Hogan, he issued an executive order, signed it on March the 16th, 2020, to suspend evictions. I'm just giving a brief synopsis of the order. To suspend evictions and foreclosures as a part of Section 8401 of the Real Property Article of the Maryland Code. No court shall give any judgment for possession or warrant for restitution of possession of residential property. Tenants can if the tenant can demonstrate that he or she, through documentation, has been affected by COVID-19 and is unable to pay their mortgage or pay their rent. The order suspended foreclosures and evictions in the state of Maryland until the state of emergency is terminated. In addition, in the Court of Appeals of Maryland Administrative Order suspension of foreclosures and evictions was filed on March the 18th by Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals of Maryland, which also stayed evictions and foreclosures in the state of Maryland. As was stated in the introduction earlier, President Trump signed an executive order on foreclosures and evictions, and it was to fight the spread of COVID-19, providing assistance to renters and homeowners. The order doesn't actually set up any relief programs, nor does it impose foreclosure moratorium or prohibit evictions. I'll stop right there. That just is an introduction, and you're going to move on to the next person to get their opening.
Yes, so thank you so much, Pastor Richardson. Pastor Richardson has been a wealth of knowledge for us committee to present us with the most recent legislation that's occurring in Prince George's County. So that might have been a lot for everyone to digest. So just as a summary, I think everyone knew that in the height of the pandemic, there was actual legal legislative action as well as a court order which prevented evictions in Prince George's County. That was the state of the law. And most recently, that has changed, and we do have which is Bradley Farrar of Shipley and Horn. He is an attorney that has been working and practicing in dealing with diverse real estate needs since 2012. And so Attorney Farrar, what I'd like you to do is take this legislative information and now translate this very clearly to the listeners on the line. What does that mean legally for the tenant? And what does that mean legally for the landlord? And Mr. Farrar for coming on and being with us today.
Great. Thank you. And thank you very much, Dr. Anderson. And I want to thank the committee for the opportunity today. As Dr. Richardson pointed out, there had been a order which suspended the foreclosures and evictions and other ejectment actions. But as recently as, and that was issued back in March as a result of COVID, and as recently as Tuesday, the Court of Appeals issued a administrative order lifting that suspension of those actions, court actions. But there's a lot of caveats that are in there, and there are caveats in there both for landlords as well as for tenants. So for example, there is now a requirement for example for landlords who wish to move forward with an eviction, that they now have to file a declaration that they are in compliance with the CARES Act. And one of the things that's prevalent in the order that was issued is that recognition that a number of mortgages that are being used to finance people's homes are actually federally subsidized. So now the requirement from the courts is that you now have to demonstrate as a landlord that your property is not subsidized by the government, and as a result is not part of the moratorium of the federally subsidized properties. And so what that means is for the landlords, they have to prove that. On the flip side of that becomes a possible defense for persons who are facing either an eviction or foreclosure, which is now they have an affirmative defense where they can say, this property is subsidized by the federal government, and therefore it should be, it's not eligible to move forward for a eviction or foreclosure or any other ejectment action. This order came out again on Tuesday. It came out late, and it again it suspends all of those items, all of those actions that were facing suspension, and so again, it's a fluid, and we should keep in mind that this is fluid, that is changing, and we have to stay ever vigilant and ever informed that these items and these ejectment actions are again fluid, and they may be moving forward, and many of them are moving forward as I understand. We have again a number of clients who have ejectment actions that had been set in December and January that are now moving forward through the court system. And so again, both landlords and tenants should be aware that the courts are opening up and they are moving forward with some ejectment actions for properties that are eligible in this manner.
Great. Thank you so much, Attorney Farrar. Could you tell our listeners if they have specific legal questions as it pertains to their specific cases, how they could reach out to you if they're interested in legal advice and representation?
Certainly. Absolutely. Again, I'm Bradley Farrar. I'm with the law offices of Shipley and Horn. Shipley and Horn is a 25-year-old law firm with our offices located in Largo, Maryland. Our phone number is 301-925-1800. Again, that number is 301-925-1800. And we, again, have a 25-year track record of representing people and businesses throughout Prince George's County and the state of Maryland in helping them with a number of legal issues. And we certainly will be more than happy to speak with anyone regarding any legal questions or concerns that they have. And we can be found on the web at www.shpa.com.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And for those who are listening, Attorney Farrar is going to attempt to stay on the line. If you have some general legal questions, he will try to answer them as best he can. Be very aware that, and I'm an attorney by trade, that he cannot give specific legal, not meant to give specific legal advice. It's to give you an overview of what's occurring in the county so that you can make the best decisions for yourself. And one of the best decisions that you can make is that if you think you have a legal issue, if you think that you're in legal trouble, if you even think that you are facing eviction, please, please, please contact legal counsel who can actually give you specific advice to your specific situation on how to negotiate and navigate through that. We under time, and there's a lot on people's shoulders, and finances have been strained, and people have been laid off, and stimulus checks have been delayed, and unemployment has been delayed. And so hopefully that this town hall will give you the background information that you need to then make that next best step and best consideration for you. And one of those best steps and best consideration is to speak with legal counsel. And Attorney Farrar and Shipley and Horn are one of the best in the business you're on. And one thing I do want to state is we talk a lot about tenants, but we also know that there are business owners that are affected by this. There are some tenants who have attempted to pay a portion of their rent because that's all that they could have done. And then there are some that could not pay at all because they just did not have the resources. And so you have landlords who are now facing issues with their mortgages because they own buildings and they own houses because their tenants have not paid. And so Attorney Farrar's firm represents both and certainly can give some direction and advice on both sides. I wanted to make that clear for you. So thank you so much, Attorney Farrar, for that information. I think the highlight of that for everyone to know, based on what Reverend Richardson and Attorney Farrar has said, is the ball is moving again. The ball is moving again. So there was a time where there was a protection where evictions were not being held and courts were not open and things were not proceeding. Please don't be mistaken. The president's executive order does not mean that you cannot be evicted in Prince George's County. Reverend Richardson said, as it related to the bill and as Attorney Farrar has indicated, the courts are now open. They are now moving to phase 4. They are now looking at and starting evictions that were on the books in December of 2019 and January of 2020. And they will then start progressing. And attorneys and landlords can begin to start filing evictions for new cases. So by all means, please make sure that you understand that and do not misunderstand the President Trump's executive order as it applying to you if you're either privately renting or even if you're publicly renting. That executive order does not mean that you cannot be evicted. So again, thank you so much, Attorney Farrar. So next, one thing we want to switch over to right now is a discussion about what happens if you hold a mortgage. So we talk a lot about landlord and tenant rights, but we know that there are a lot of people in Prince George's County that listen to us that are owners. And so just as tenants have not been able to pay, there have been homeowners that have been unable to pay for their mortgages. And we know that some mortgage holders have actually taken advantage of the COVID resources, the forbearances, et cetera, that were available to them. So we are thankful that we have on our Economic Development Subcommittee with us today, Pastor Rudolph Brooks. Pastor Brooks is the pastor of Kingdom Tabernacle of Refuge in in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, And he's also the owner of Brooks Motor Vehicles and has done a lot in the area. Pastor Brooks is going to talk to us a little bit about what we need to consider if we hold a mortgage and how the lifting of all these moratoriums affects us and what you need to consider as a homeowner. So Pastor Brooks, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Anderson. You're so kind, and I'm excited about serving on the Economic Development Committee. I am Pastor Rudolph Brooks. I'm the assistant pastor at Kingdom Tabernacle of Refuge in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. And we're talking just about mortgages and some relief that's taking place. You know, this has been a trying time for everyone. And like Attorney Farrar stated, everything is now fluid. So things are moving. And so we have to be on top of things. But also, I want to state before I give the information that we need to be constantly looking for updates, because what I've seen through the COVID-19 is that what's true for today may be very different and contrary tomorrow. And so what protections are in place today may present vulnerability tomorrow. So we have to be clear on what's happening and be timely so we can know what changes are being made. Having said that, there are some remedies with mortgages that have always been in place that are still in place. There's foreclosures that are going forward. Modifications are still being offered. They're offering short sales as well. They can also offer a transfer of ownership. And I state that, but most times, if you're a mortgage holder, you want to stay in your home and keep your mortgage active. So those things are like a last resort. And with modification, that can be helpful, but
One second, Pastor Brooks, we cannot hear you, Pastor Brooks. We can't, your sound went out, Pastor Brooks. Just give
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, you got it, Pastor Brooks?
yes, did I go out?
You did go out.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm just going to speak about forbearance as an option that they have offered. Many mortgage companies are offering now, specific to the pandemic and COVID-19 situations. So a forbearance is just simply a postponement of your mortgage payments. So the lender has agreed not to move forward with charging late fees or requiring a payment for the period of the forbearance that's agreed upon between you and the mortgage company. The forbearance has to be agreed upon between you and the mortgage company, and it will stop payments. It'll stop credit reporting for you on your bureau. If you have a late payment, it would not register as such. In order to qualify for the forbearance, you have to answer some questions There's usually a form or a worksheet that you have to fill out with the mortgage company. And what they're looking for is to show indication that you've been affected by the pandemic, either that you lost your income or that your income is significantly reduced, and that reduction has rendered you unable to make your monthly payment. So they offer questions that say reduction or loss of income, missing work due to COVID-19, and they even offer an option if you've had to care for a family member who's been affected by COVID-19, which would increase your expenses and may make you less available to do the work that you normally do. So that's also available as an option to show cause for qualification. A couple things to consider, even if you're choosing to move forward with forbearance, pursuant to the CARES Act, they will and must report to the credit bureau that you've entered into forbearance. And so it won't show late payments, but it will show that the loan is currently in forbearance, and that will be reflected on your credit bureau. Another thing to consider is that if you have any other open applications for any other kind of loans, it could be affected by entering into forbearance as they pull your credit report. Lastly, the forbearance is not forever. It's typically 90 days that they'll enter into, and then you'll have to revisit it. So what you want to consider is that at the end of the forbearance, the amount of mortgage payments that have been put on hold must be dealt with. So once the forbearance has expired, you'll be expected to make the monthly payments that were put on hold. Now, what the mortgage companies are stating is that they will offer options at the end of the forbearance that can cure what you are owing to them. So they will offer a solution such as modification. So the assumption is that once the forbearance is over, your income has been satisfied or has come back for you, and you're able to make the payments. And so they will expect you to make payments to make up that. They will offer repayment options, such as a payment plan where you would make your mortgage payment and an additional payment as a part of the payment plan to catch you up for what you had missed during the forbearance. There is another option that they offer, which if you qualify, you can do a modification at that time, which would modify the entire balance of your mortgage, including the payments that were put on hold. And that would instantly make you current, and you would have a new agreement with the mortgage company for a modified mortgage with the interest rate that you negotiate at that time, with a new payment that will be due for the mortgage. The other option that they're offering, which most people may take advantage of, is they're offering to take the payments that were put in forbearance and just add them to the end of your loan. And so once the forbearance is complete or expired, you would just pick up with the next mortgage monthly payment that's due, and the payments, the 3 payments typically for 90 days will be put at the end of the loan, that you would extend your current mortgage by the 3 additional months. So the satisfaction date on your current mortgage would be extended by 3 months, and they would expect 3 additional payments on the back side of your mortgage. Now, although this is helpful, one of the suggestions, if you can, and if it's feasible, even entering into forbearance, you are able to make even partial payments that could make what you owe at the end of the forbearance less, and less of a big bite or pill to swallow at the end. So these are all options that you have to consider for yourself that you can exercise, that the mortgage companies are making available at this time.
That is phenomenal information, Pastor, and thank you so much. I know if you're listening, it's a lot of information, and one thing I will tell you is that if you want any of this information after this session, please email us at pgfbab, that's pgfbab@gmail.com. And we will send you the information that we're giving out today. Pastor has developed a PowerPoint that has some of this information available, and we want to get that out. And then the information about the legislation, we will also get that out to you. Attorney Farrar just gave us some information that we'll also send out to you regarding the Court of Appeals orders if you're interested. Again, as we know, it's very, very fluid. So what we're saying today could change in a heartbeat, but we're talking about what the status is today. And as it relates to mortgages, I think a couple of things I want to highlight. Have option of forbearance, we have option of modification. All of those options are dependent upon your particular situation. One thing that rang very loudly for me is if you do a forbearance, then that will go on your credit report, and it might not affect you, but it might affect you. So I want to foot stomp the notion that you have to do what's best for you. And all of this information that we're giving to you is very, very general. What might help one person might not help the other person. And so whether or not you're entering into a forbearance or whether or not you're entering into a modification depends upon your financial situation and what your entire household finances can bear. I think what also has resounded very loudly for me is if you can pay something. What we have to remember if we're on the tenant side or if we're on the homeowner side is there is someone else on that other side of the table. They are a citizen, they are a homeowner, they are a business person, they have a family. And so of course, while on the other side of a mortgage is a bank, there are restrictions that banks have and there are regulations that banks have that they have to work within. And so you have to find a way to work within those regulations and make it work for you and your family. But on the other side of the tenant side is a landlord and they're a homeowner, they have a family and they have bills to pay. And so from both of this point, what really has resounded in my spirit is if you could pay something, if there's a way to pay something, then your landlord and your bank, they're more likely to work with you. And the other thing that's resounding loudly that I really want to make sure that everybody is aware of is communication is king. Communication is king. And while we all know that what's going on with the pandemic can be very, very overwhelming, and sometimes as it relates to mental health issues, the easiest thing to do is put our head in the sand. And sometimes can't deal with it because it's just too overwhelming. But if you don't communicate with your landlord and you don't communicate with your bank, then they will take a negative action. And then you have to go from point Z and work back to convince them that some type of workout is appropriate for you. So communication is the key. If you can pay something, try to pay something. If you can't pay anything, please make sure that you're communicating with your landlord, you're communicating with your bank, and that you have it in writing. Very early on when we started FBAB, we drafted letters and we gave them out to anyone that wanted the draft letter, primarily churches that might have had mortgages, but we made the letters available so that you could write to your bank and you could write to your landlord and request some assistance so that you have the documentation. Because if it's not in writing, it really didn't happen. And you could go into court and the landlord or the mortgage company could say they never had the conversation, and then you would be left at ground zero. So communication is king. Make sure that you have it in writing. It's available for you in the mortgage framework. And so again, make sure that you know what your bank is offering. These banks are required under COVID to work through these things right now. And so make sure that you have a conversation with your bank and begin the process if it's needed. But thank you so much, Pastor Brooks, and we'll make sure that we get your PowerPoint out to anyone that's looking for that. Before we get into what's very important, and I think what most people would want to hear about in this town hall of resources, there was a question past Attorney Farrar for you. And the questions occurred in the Court of Appeals this week, if you know. Were there any evictions? I think that might be the question. Was anyone evicted? Has anything actually gone before the court, and any evictions actually taken place?
No, so again, thank you very much for the question. The what happened was that Judge Barbera issued a second order lifting the suspension of foreclosures, evictions, and other ejectments involving residences. And she also specified for landlords and for the court, she clarified for district and circuit courts what has to be done now in order to comply with the CARES Act. And so that's what was filed Tuesday afternoon in the Court of Appeals. It's a new administrative order that suspends or that lifts the suspension of the foreclosures.
Thank you. So for those who are listening, when we're talking about the Court of Appeals, we're talking about an order that's coming down from that court, which is different from what's actually happening in landlord tenant court, i.e. have evictions been filed and have courts signed eviction orders. That information we don't have readily today, and that is something that you actually access the district court website or call to the district court or even run down there. But Pastor Farrar, are they doing virtual hearings for landlord tenant actions, do you know, or are they actually having them in person?
I don't know that they're necessarily doing virtual hearings. What I do know is that, the district court did come out with a schedule, and they have a phased return to full operations. And I'm not sure, the last time that I saw this order on the phase return to operations, they were looking to start docketing actions, civil actions, beginning August 31st through October 4th. And then it looked like that would be the phase 4. And then phase 5 would begin October 5th moving forward, where it would be full opening on all matters. But again, these things, as we said earlier at the top of the hour, these things are fluid, and it very well may be changing, but that was the last that I saw.
Right. And again, my strong suggestion to anyone listening is if you had an eviction order prior to the moratorium, you keep up with your case. Don't use general information to figure out what you have to do specifically. You call about your case, you go online and look at your case, you look at all the notes regarding your case so that you can make sure that you're not in jeopardy if you are in fear of that. Because again, as we keep saying, things change, put in a position where something has happened simply because you're not tracking it and you're assuming that a general order is applying to your specific situation. So thank you for that. So now let's talk about resources, because this is very important and vital. People want to know, what do I do? In the event that I call, I find out that the marshals are coming, what can I do? Where do I go? I am behind, I want to pay something, but I need some assistance. And we are blessed to have with us today Albert Chapman. He is the Executive Director of United Communities Against Poverty, UCAP, if you've ever heard of them, a great, great resource in Prince George's County, has been around for many, many years. And he's also the pastor of New Beginning. Chapman is going to talk to us today about what UCAP has to offer and what you as a tenant as well as a landlord can consider in getting assistance with housing and other resources that are available in Prince George's County.
Hi, and thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Anderson. It is an honor to be a part of this organization. The Faith-Based Advisory Board is awesome, because they are the centers of influence for us as faith-based leaders, as leaders in our community, but also not only are they advocating for us, but they are also providing great information and resources. So I'm grateful to be a part of this. I'm blessed to be on the board of United Communities Against Poverty. Our executive director is Rashida Jameson, but I'm on the board, but that's all right. But anyway, we want to thank you so much for this time. I want to start off, if I may, just by kind of sharing this with you. The emergency management system and the crisis management system are similar in that the emergency management system, I think, is well known by everybody. You just dial 911, you give some information to the dispatcher, and the dispatcher sends help, and that's the way we look at it. But crisis management is similar, whereby there is some numbers that I'm going to pass out to you today. There is a system in place to help us. There are organizations and resources that can help us for rental assistance if you're being evicted from your apartment, or if for foreclosures, all types of assistance, even if you need food assistance or even clothing assistance. There is assistance here in Prince George's County for you. And just like the emergency management system is well organized, they work together as a team, we do the same thing in crisis management. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the resources, some of the groups, some of the opportunities that are out there to help in cases like this. I do want to start by just reminding people that, you know, this pandemic is new, it's unprecedented. So a lot of our resources are overwhelmed right now. We were not overwhelmed, but there's a lot of capacity in January and February because of the winter times and people evicting at those times. But the pandemic just added on to that. We normally help about personally in UCAP, we normally help about 3,300 women and children every year. But we've helped probably about 3,000 individuals between the last 4 or 5 months. So you can imagine how overwhelmed it is. But as we get started, I want you, if you don't catch anything, please note these 2 things down. Number 1, please note this telephone number, 211. 211 in the crisis management sector is the same as 911 in the emergency management sector. So if you have a cell phone or phone and you want to you need some assistance, please note 211. 211 is a crisis hotline designed to have unique personnel online to help you to, they work as a center of influence. They help you to find where the resources are. They work primarily with Department of Social Services to direct people to where the funding is or where the resources really are available at that time. And so it's very important that you contact 211 and start the process, get your name on the list. There's also a 1-888 number, and there's a 1-800 number, and it's 1-888-731-0999. So if you don't have access to 211, feel free to call 1-888-731-0999. It is very important for us leaders to direct people to this hotline so that they can begin the process. So whatever their needs are, whether it's food assistance, rental assistance, you name it, it's very important that they start there. Just like for us in emergency management, if you needed an ambulance or a fire truck, it's very important to dial 911. So do the same, dial 211. Also, I want to just make sure, just so that you'll know, here's some of the reasons and some of the things that this organization, here's some of the things that our state has set up for crisis assistance. One is we provide people with food services. There are numerous churches, numerous organizations, nonprofits, and food banks all throughout Prince George's County. So they can help us with food assistance. They can help us with rental assistance. There's even a program if you're getting into a new apartment and you have a problem with your deposit, there's even programs for that. There's programs for foreclosure management. There's programs for almost anything. But the most important thing, again, is to dial 211 and get the process started. But these programs are designed for Prince George's County residents to give us assistance during a crisis. And unfortunately, at this time of COVID-19, or it doesn't have to be COVID-19, it could be you're displaced because of a fire or situations like that. But these resources help to give help to our citizens who just need help at a certain time. I represent United Communities Against Poverty, but there are numerous organizations that are part of this program or the system to help you with all types of assistance. So there's LARS, there's HIP, there's American Red Cross, there's so many other organizations that tie in with us to make sure we help each other or to make sure we help the residents here in Prince George's County. So there's numerous efforts, numerous groups of people that work together to make sure that we try our best to get as much resources to the citizens as possible. And another reason I want to just state this real quick, sometimes the resources aren't there today, but might be there next Monday or next Tuesday. And the reason you want to get on the list is because as you're on the list, they go by first come, first serve. So while you're on that list, as more resources come, you might not be able to get it today, but next week, that resource may come just in time to help you. There's also mitigation teams to help you with foreclosure and to actually work with you and helping you deal with your landlord, et cetera. So you really want to reach out and you want to use 211. 211 or 1-888-731-0999 are the numbers that you have to note. Every church office, every leader should have those numbers written down. So if somebody calls and needs some type of assistance, you can feel free to call that number or direct them to that number and let them know that these are resources that are here for you as citizens. We also want to note real quick, there are some hotels that are trying their best to also work with us. I know that Motel 6 is trying to help. There are also private organizations, such as certain fraternities and sororities. Some for-profit businesses are actually funding or providing resources to different nonprofits. So you want to make sure you get your name on the list. You want to make sure you reach out to get as much help as possible. I also want to, just before I close, I want to remind you that unfortunately, in crisis, we find that sometimes our emotions get involved and get the best of us. And sometimes you'll find that at these times, abuse, child abuse, domestic abuse, things like that seem to rise a little bit more. Suicide seems to rise a little bit more. And so I want you to know there's help for these situations. There is a domestic abuse hotline, which we'll put on the Facebook page. There's also a hotline for suicide prevention. These things are unfortunately, we see a lot of a time of crisis. Unfortunately, these things occur, but there's help. There's help for you. There's all types of help as far as financial services as well as emotional and mental services too. And so we want to just thank Faith-Based Advisory Board for being a center of influence to help us to know that there is help for us as pastors. There's help for our congregation. There's help for our communities. There's help for the Prince George's County residents. I thank our county executive, Angela Alsobrooks, because she's one of the leaders that ensures that situations like this are available for, or resources like this are available through Department of Social Services, through Department of Housing Services, et cetera. And she works uniquely to make sure we're here to provide services for our residents of Prince George's County. So I thank you for the opportunity. Please remember 211 for crisis hotline is similar to 911, and feel free to call even if you just have a question. You have a situation, somebody, whatever it is, feel free to call 211. They will be glad to assist you at any time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pastor Chapman. That was phenomenal. That was phenomenal. Oh my God, we are here to help. And something that you said just resounded with me, but we would not be here today if it wasn't for our county executive. We would not be here today if it wasn't for our county executive. So we give kudos and applause, and we're thankful for Angela Alsobrooks, because the FBAB, Faith-Based Advisory Board, exists because of her. The reason why we're all here today is because we are serving with a passion to want to help and bring resources and answers to Prince George's County, and you certainly brought all of that. And so we're thankful for you. One other thing that you said is very, very important is that, again, as we talked about the legal situation, so the amount of resources changes daily. And so you might have called yesterday and nothing was available. Call back. We want to help. Things are moving very quickly. Money keeps getting poured in and going out and going in and going out. So do not give up. Please, if you're facing a crisis, please do not give up. Reach out for help. Ask questions. As Pastor Chapman said, it's not just UCAP. So if UCAP doesn't have it, because they're connected with other resources, maybe Red Cross has it, maybe Catholic Charities has it. And one thing very well is to make those connections. So please don't feel that you're in this by yourself. Being in a situation where you're concerned about your housing can be extremely stressful. It's one of the most stressful things that anyone can experience, particularly if you are the head of a household and you have a family. If you're wondering whether it's in a time of crisis in a pandemic or not, if you're wondering whether or not you have a roof over your head, it can be very, very overwhelming. And so be an answer. We want to connect you to those resources, and 211 and UCAP is certainly a great place to start. So if you are listening today and you are facing those issues, by all means, when we get off this line, dial 211 and start that process. Do not forget 211. Even if you didn't catch the 1-888 number, if you start with 211, it'll connect you with all of the other numbers that you need. And certainly you can Google UCAP, and their information is on the website, as well as all of the numbers that we talked about today. So Pastor, thank you so very, very much. Another resource I want to give on the heel of that is, if you can't afford an attorney and you feel that this is a dire situation, Community Legal Services of Prince George's County is available, and they do provide free legal assistance as well as legal aid. Do not wait until the last minute. Both of them have an intake process, and sometimes that intake process can take about a week in order to get it to an attorney and for an attorney to call you back. So again, if you're concerned about, am I facing eviction? Does this apply to me? How do I manage that? Now you have two resources. You don't have funding, and if you have some money set aside and you need and want a private lawyer, you have Shipley and Horn and Mr. Farrar to call. If you need financial rental assistance, now you have UCAP to call in 211 to get that process started, to begin to help to link you to those resources. And if you are already in a housing crisis, call 211 now. There are also various hotels available, and Motel 6 was one. We did try to check on the status of a couple of others, but there were two others that I will give you that you can reach out to. I do not know their status, so we'll be transparent, but they have helped homeless individuals for years, and that is the Red Roof Inn on Oxon Hill Road. They have worked with people who are homeless, and also the Comfort Inn on Oxon Hill Road, right across from Top Golf. They have worked with homeless people over the years. So listening to this on Facebook and you don't know where to go, those three hotels have been great in the county in working with homeless individuals. So I encourage you to reach out to them if that is a concern. Lastly, I want to remind you that the Faith-Based Advisory Board is having a mental health town hall. That is August 19th at 12 o'clock p.m. It will be on Facebook Live. And so, as Pastor Chapman said, a lot of this just triggers a lot of different issues that we are facing. And when I say a lot of this, we're talking about the housing crisis. Being in a housing crisis can trigger domestic violence issues, can trigger mental health issues, can trigger suicidal ideation. So if you're experiencing any of that, we don't want you to be alone. So if it's critical, dial 211. But also, if you're looking for further answers, please join us again for our mental health town hall on August 19th. At 12, we'll be giving you more resources as it relates to mental health needs during this pandemic. So Pastor Chapman, again, thank you so much. That was a wealth of information. So before we close, we wanted to see if there were any other questions that you would like us to address. And if not, I'm going to turn it over to Lady Nakia Wright to close us out.
Before we go to any questions, Reverend John Richardson has some additional resources that he would like to share with our audience today. Reverend Richardson?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. So on May 18th, the Prince George's County Council introduced an emergency bill, CB 16-2020, concerning landlord-tenant code prohibition of rent increases, termination, and late fees. According to Section 13-139 of that bill, rent increases and late fees or penalties during certain emergencies are prohibited. A landlord shall not increase a tenant's rent nor impose late fees or penalties if the rent increase would take effect during an emergency as defined in that section of the bill and within 90 days after the expiration of an emergency, or a landlord shall not issue notice of rent increases, late fees, or penalties during an emergency and within 90 days. In addition to that, the County Council approved a letter urging Governor Larry Hogan to extend and expand a state moratorium on evictions. And we have not received an update on that yet. And lastly, Attorney Brian, Maryland Attorney General Brian Frost had issued a statement asking that the state's chief judges extend the moratorium on evictions until January 31st, citing extraordinary circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic. We do not have an update on that yet. And this is the last, I thought that was the last one, but this is the last statement that I will issue. In July, over 70 advocacy organizations, including unions 1199, SEIU, CASA, and ACLU, along with churches and nonprofits, sent a collaborative, unified letter to Senate President Bill Ferguson and House Speaker Adrian A. Jones, raising concerns about this issue and urging the Maryland General Assembly to convene a special session to address the issues that we have been discussing in this town hall today. I would strongly urge all residents of the state of Maryland to contact all their legislators on the county council and the Maryland General Assembly, especially the senators and delegates, and ask them to convene a special session to enact laws to help the citizens in the state of Maryland as we are experiencing avalanches of evictions and foreclosures. That concludes what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Richardson. Great and vital information. Thank you. This has been a monumental moment. This has been a moment where information has been needed, and we thank you so very much for each of the panelists for sharing. Thank you so much, Dr. Anderson, for being as wonderful as you are, as informative as you are, and for navigating us through unlived and before waters. What I will say to each and every listening ear, that this is a time for advocacy. This is a time for your voice to be heard. Reverend Richardson gave us instructions on how we can reach out to our county council members and the way to do it in order to produce change. We need every voice on this matter. Now, what I will say to you is that at this moment in time, this is a moment where your integrity will speak loud. If you are able to pay your rent, because the reality of it is we need Prince George's County to continue to thrive, to continue to grow, and remain a relevant business county. So if you have the money, pay your rent. Let me tell you something. The easy road will never lead to success, and we are out for success. Now, if you're having a difficult time, join in with your voice and let's work together to produce change. Again, if you're able to pay your rent, pay your rent. But if you are not able to pay your rent, we are providing resources and answers for you to do so. Dr. Anderson, you wanted to jump in for a moment?
I did. Yeah, I sure did. Thank you. And that obviously is fantastic information. I did want to remind everyone that if you want resources in Prince George's County, please fill out your census. Please fill out your census. This is a shameless plug for the census, but it just hit me. Sometimes we start getting angry about why aren't there resources? Why isn't there rental assistance? It's because we don't have that information to get the money, and the census is what drives that. So please, please, please fill out your census. Your more census information means more money for Prince George's County, so that's critical. Last thing I'll just say, if you're experiencing this issue and you don't know where to turn, you don't even know where to start, the Doc Holland team, dochollandteam.com is a resource for you. They are real estate agents. They help with financing, and they help with sorting out, what should I do? Should I move out because I'm facing eviction? Should I take all my money and pay to something else with the money that I have and negotiate a payment on what I owe? All of that information sometimes is so difficult to deal with when you're in it, in the midst of it. So I did forget to mention the Doc Holland team, Lynn Holland, very good resource in just helping you for free, at least discuss how you should take the next step in managing a housing crisis. So thank you, Lady Wright. I just wanted to get that census in because it just meant so much in resources.
That was a great shameless plug. 10 years ago, our last census count, Prince George's County lost $363 million that could have come to Prince George's County had we all the residents completed the census form. Please be sure to go to Faith-Based Advisory Board social media page, and on that page we have a barcode. All you have to do is just take your phone, hold it up to the camera, and just hold it up to the barcode, tap on it. It will take you directly to the census. We've made it so easy for you. So please, if you have not completed your census form, go over to the Faith-Based Advisory Board, or if you're watching us, you're probably already on that page. Just scroll up and look for that barcode and complete your census today. Also, the deadline to register to vote in the state of Maryland, I believe, is October 12th or 13th. Make sure that you are a registered voter. Your voice is going to count. This is an extremely vital election, and we need your vote. Prince George's County, we are a strong county in the state of Maryland. We have a very high revenue for the state of Maryland. We want to maintain our status in the state of Maryland. We want to go higher, and we want to elect those people in office that hear our cries and can also plan, strategize, and implement change that is desperately needed in our county. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been a very, very, very good moment.
Phenomenal.
Phenomenal. All the pastors, your information, please be sure to, again, follow our page. We have some great things planned for you. We have so many committees, and the committees were formed with Prince George's County residents in mind. We have an education committee. We have a youth committee. You've just witnessed the economic development committee. We have a newly added public safety committee. All these committees were formed with you in mind. Please make sure you follow our page. As Dr. Anderson said, on Wednesday, we're gonna have a mental health town hall. On Thursday, we're gonna have a parents check-in for those parents who are having a hard time with virtual learning, the students who are having a difficult time. We want to be an answer for you, along with helping you with exercises to get you through. We also have resources available. Please make sure that you tune in. Please make sure that you are a part, and please make sure that you share. Again, myself, Lady Nakia Wright, the chair of the Faith-Based Advisory Board, my co-chair, Dr. Sharon Anderson, thank you so very much. Pastor Dante King, this is a very extremely sensitive matter. Many lives are affected, and we would not be who we are if it were not for prayer. Can you please conclude this moment with a moment of prayer?
Yes, I will do. Thank you. August the 22nd, the Wayne Curry building, there will be a census drive as well as a voter registration. That's the 22nd at the Wayne Curry building. Forward Church, Prince George's County, all the pastors partnering up together. Father, we thank you for this opportunity to be a bridge of hope, a bridge of help, and a bridge of healing. We thank you for the resources that are in Prince George's County. Those of us who are called to be a blessing, allow us to be a blessing. And those who need to be blessed, allow them to have the humility to ask for it. We thank you, God, for this great opportunity. We thank you for our county exec. Continue to give her the wisdom that she needs to guide this great county. We thank you for what you're going to do. Bless those who are affected, not just by foreclosure and eviction, but are affected by COVID. We still believe that you sit upon the throne. We thank you because you've never evicted us out of your presence, and your grace has never foreclosed on us. We give you glory and honors. In your name we pray. Amen.
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 Thank you.
Bless. Thanks, everyone.
Bless you.
Thank you.